This episode is brought to you by Vinitaly International Academy, the toughest Italian wine program. 1,000 candidates have produced 262 Italian wine ambassadors to date. Next courses in Hong Kong, Russia, New York, and Verona. Think you make the cut? Apply now at vinitalyinternational.com.
Thanks for tuning into my new show, Get U.S. Market Ready with Italian Wine People. I'm Steve Raye, author of the book, How to Get U.S. Market Ready. And in my previous podcast, I shared some of the lessons I've learned from 30 years in the wine and spirits business, helping brands enter and grow in the U.S. market. This series will be dedicated to the personalities who have been working in the Italian wine sector in the U.S., their experiences, challenges, and personal stories. I'll uncover the roads that they walked, shedding light on current trends, business strategies, and their unique brands. So, thanks for listening in, and let's get to the interview. Hi, this is Steve Raye, and welcome to this week's edition of Get U.S. Market Ready with Italian Wine People on the Italian Wine Podcast. This week, my guest is Giovanni Brumat from a really interesting region in Italy that, frankly, I had not heard about, although I probably driven by, and we'll dig into it. So, Giovanni, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Steve. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm really happy to talk briefly about our winery and our land.
Okay, so it's a winery, it's a co-op, it's a region, but it is all very unique and kind of exclusive. Tell us about it.
Yeah, Cantina Toblino was founded in 1960. It's a co-op winery that nowadays counts more than 600 wine growers that cultivate around 900 hectares, from 100 meters above sea level up to 880 meters. So we can say we can mix together both Valle viticulture and mountain viticulture, so extreme viticulture. And so it's quite hard to manage all these different microclimates, soil types, etc., and different grape varieties, of course. But we do that thanks to a really nice team, experienced team with a lot of soft and hard skills, that are really good to deal with the wine growers, not only in terms of viticulture practices or sustainable practices, but also from an administrative point of view, because it's really important, because more than a quarter, actually almost a third of our total vineyard area is certified organic. So even the administrative part is really important to get certified.
Okay, so geographically, where is it? Where are you physically located yourself?
We are located in the southern part of Trentino in an area called the Valle dei Laghi, which means Valley of the Lakes, because there are some small lakes in this area with various depths, various surfaces, etc., that mitigate the climate. So in our area, there are two important roles that influence the climate here. One is the lakes that retain heat and warm during the summer period and slowly release it during the winter and cold months. On the other side, we have two winds, one coming from the Lake Garda. Again, a warm breeze that really mitigates the climate in the cold times. Whereas in the summertime, we have another wind coming from the Dolomites, a stronger wind, colder wind, that we can say it lowers a little bit the high temperature of the summer period, especially in the month of July, August. So at the end of the growing season, you can say.
It moderates, maybe. We kind of jumped ahead here, but tell us about you, your history and how you got here. You've been here, I think, 3 years. Tell us about how you ended up working on this piece of business.
Oh, nowadays I'm covering the role of brand and export manager for Cantina Toblino. And I started 3 years ago with a consultancy here, actually. And in a few years, I got this role, which is really important for me and also for the Cantina Toblino, because recently we have launched a lot of interesting projects of quality wines, sustainability, organic practices, etc. So it was important to have someone that can work on the marketing part, so communication, PR, events, etc. But on the other side, also to try to develop the brand abroad. So in the export markets like the US or the UK that are really important for us. My background is in economics, so in management. I studied in Milan at Bocconi University. And I had a lot of international exposure with Erasmus or exchange programs, etc. And for my, we can say, wine background, I recently graduated at the WSET diploma, so I completed my studies there.
Oh, great. Congratulations on that. I know that that's a hard thing, which I have no intention of attempting. So one of the things that, two things I think that are particularly important here that distinguishes Cantina Toblini from other kind of regions and also co-ops. It's different because you are a co-op, you are a region, you're not a consortio, but kind of function crossover a lot of those things. Plus, you're known for a unique grape, which I was not familiar with. And as we were joking about, even though there may be 500-600, I've heard different numbers of indigenous grapes in Italy. This was one I never heard of, and I didn't recognize the name. Nosiola, but when we were at Wine to Wine in Verona, you said, well, go over there, they're serving ice cream, and that's the name of our grape. So explain it, if you would.
Yeah, of course. First of all, starting from your first sentence, we can say that Cantina Toblino is a quite strange company because inside of the co-op, we also have a privately owned Azienda Agricola, so a kind of estate of 38 hectares where some of our high-end wines and grapes come from. And also we have a restaurant. So there are 3 different companies within the group Cantina Toblino. So we are focused a lot on Nosiola, which is the only autochthonous white grape variety in Trentino, so local grape variety in Trentino. There are some notices of it that dates back to the 17th century at the time of Concilium of Trento. So the reunion, we can say, of the Catholic Church to fight against Protestantism, etc. There was documents talking about a grape variety coming from this area, so the Valle dei Laghi, that was used both for the production of still wines and some kind of dessert wines. But recently, Nosiola has been discovered, we can say, because it became a grape variety that is also age-worthy. It can make age-worthy wines, starting from, for instance, from our Largiller that comes to the market after 7 or 8 years from the harvest. And on the other side...
And this is a white wine. Let me interrupt and say this is a white wine, which makes it particularly unusual.
Yes, it is. It is, definitely. And at the same time, we also have the probably famous, I would say, dessert wines that is called Vino Santo Trentino, which is quite particular because it comes to the market, in our case, after 15 years from the harvest. And it is...
Oh, explain that. Where is it for the last 15 years?
Oh, somewhere in the cellar. No, I'm just joking. So it begins with the late harvest, we can say in early October usually. Then the grapes are dried for at least 6 months until the Holy Week, so Settimana Santa in Italian, which also gives the name to the wine. Then they are soft pressed, torchio or a vertical pneumatic press to extract a really clear, pure juice. Then it is fermented and matured in small oak barrels of 200 and 400 liters. Those barrels are really, really old because some of them can be even 60 years old, so as old as the winery. And then they stay there for 13 or 14 years, depending on the vintage. And then they age a little bit also in the bottle before releasing. So in the end, 15 years at least before coming to the market.
Well, that's really unusual for sweet wines. Certainly there's Vinsantos in Tuscany, I believe, and other parts of Italy, and certainly in Greece too, in Santorini, spelled differently, but still similar model in terms of drying to concentrate the juice, but 15 years aging is kind of significant. I'm looking forward to tasting that. Back to the Nosiola, the white wine. Nosiola is sold as a kind of refreshing white wine. Has some, I thought, very distinctive flavors. I'm not a connoisseur to be able to describe them, but it definitely was one that I noticed. But the age worthiness is different. Now, I compare it where I'm a lot more familiar with like Grüne Veltliner in Austria. With age, it changes dramatically, but it also develops what is called petrol notes, or, leave it at petrol. That's not the case here, I don't believe, correct?
No, that's right. First of all, one thing that I would like to say is that in this area, Nosiola also is called La Nosiola, which gives like a feminine link to this grape variety. So we can say that the grape and the wines are elegant, are really vertical in a certain sense, so retain freshness over time, thanks to a really high acidity that sometimes even from both total acidity and the pH can be even higher than the base wines that are used, or base grapes that are used for the production of Trento DOC, so the sparkling wines. Therefore, Nosiola can be aged for a really long time, even if we are talking about still white wines, like our Largiller. Over time, it develops a really nice nutty flavor that reminds of what we call it in Italian nocciola. So that's also another link to the name,
which is hazelnuts, right?
Yeah, hazelnuts. That's right. So I think that over time, the Nosiola can really give a lot of excellent aromas and taste profile with a really long persistence that is typical, as you said before, of Grüner of Riesling or other age-worthy whites. I would say it's somehow in the middle between a kind of more aromatic grape variety like Riesling and a Chardonnay that is less aromatic, but can have a really nice development over time as the Riesling. But Nosiola is somehow in the middle, in my opinion. And what can I say? Another typical feature of the Nosiola is that historically it was produced in two different ways, maybe even three, if you are considering also the Vino Santo as one of the types. So everyday drinking wine, so easy to drink, low alcohol, low aromatic profile, and really drinkable wine. On the other side, we have kind of wines like our Largiller that are aged for a long time. It can last in the bottle for a really long time.
One of the areas that you guys are actively involved with, you talked about sustainability. Can you give me a sense of where, obviously that it's a significant factor in the United States, and there's some confusion between among the terminology of sustainable, organic, natural, all those kinds of things. How is sustainability as a concept faring in Italy, in the Italian market, and what sense do you have about where it fits in the United States market?
I would say that, first of all, sustainability can have really different meanings. In our case, we think that sustainability is not only talking about some practices that focus on the reduction of the impact on the environment. So let's say in our case, organic practices. But on the other side, sustainability also considers some social and economic impact of our choices and our way of doing business. So in our case, we started back at least more than 10 years ago, I can say, trying to introduce organic practices in our vineyards and in the vineyards of our wine growers. And in 3 years, we received the first certifications on the grapes first, and then on the wines. And nowadays, in the last 5 years, we have developed also some interesting social projects with Progetto 92 and Believe Social Impact, for instance, that have two different goals. One of them was an environmental goal, we can say. So we wanted to provide houses to host the birds and the bats inside of the vineyards, so to keep the biodiversity in our area. On the other side, the social impact, because the production of these houses, birds' houses, and also the installation of these houses in the vineyards were done by the so-called NEET, so young people that are currently not working or not studying, and but on the other side, they really want to start doing a job or do something. So it's very important for us to have these links to the local community and to the people around Cantina Toblino.
Great. And in terms of the relevance or the general Italian market acceptance and desire for sustainability and or organic certification, what's your guys' point of view on that?
I would say that, as you said before, there's a lot of confusion even in the Italian market, not only in the US market, on what it means to be sustainable and what it means to be organic or biodynamic or natural, etc. But on the other side, I would say it's a goal of the wineries or the companies and also the consortium to promote and communicate what really means to be organic, to be biodynamic, natural wines, or even sustainable. In my opinion, nowadays we are in a situation where the market attention and care for the sustainable practices, not only organic, because I believe we went over the simple organic or biodynamic or natural. Nowadays, people want sustainable things. So, of course, organic is a part of it, but on the other side, they want, I don't know, maybe lighter bottles, really nice package that recovers, for instance, some paper and limits the usage of plastic, etc. So people are really keen on understanding those kind of things. And if a winery is able to promote and communicate and even make them learn something about it.
Yeah, and I'm sure you're aware that in the U.S., the term organic, as difficult, challenging for export brands, as challenging as the U.S. is for export brands, it gets even more complicated for organic brands because while it may be certified organic in the EU, in the US, it's regulated legally by the TTB, but also by the USDA for use of the word organic. So you now have a foot in the door, so to speak. You've got a distributor, an importer and distributor in Florida, and some distribution. Are the products that you're marketing in the US labeled as sustainable or organic, or are they?
Actually, not yet, but the new vintages that will come out in a few months, so in March, April, will be certified organic, but not organic itself, because as you mentioned before, there are some rules, strict rules in the US to be fully certified organic, which is the no addition of sulfur dioxide, or even the usage of other things to filter the wine. Therefore, we will have the certification made with organic grapes, which is still very important in the US market. And our importer acquired it because they think, of course, that the wine are more appealing, even if we only have, in a certain sense, made with organic grapes. But as our goal is to have almost a full range of organic wines and wines that are made with organic grapes, it's important to keep this thing.
Okay, so who is your importer?
Our importer is Buta Wines in Florida, that is based in Pompano Beach.
Buta. And when did you start? When did you actually start importing into the U.S.?
We started this year. Because we weren't present in the U.S. Up to now, but we have decided to move this step, and it was the right time to do so. And so we started import and distribution in the US in this year, even though the COVID-19 has a little bit stopped and limit our deals with the US market. But anyway, we are trying our best to be present there.
Give us a little insight into how that happened. You know, one of the biggest challenges Italian producers and behind them consortia have is finding importers into the U.S. When you have a very active trade PR program being run by Studio Crew in Vicenza, and got a hold of me and did a really aggressive but effective job in capturing my interest and attention, and then meeting when we were in Verona. But how did you get the attention of the importer? This is a big challenge for everybody else in Italy.
Oh, we have quite a strong network of people that know a lot of importers there. We have contacted some of them, but our challenge was to find the best fit for us, because we are quite big, as I mentioned before.
What's the total production of the winery in terms of if you can either in bottles or in 9-liter cases?
I can say in bottles. In bottles, we produce around 500,000 bottles, which is just a small number if you're considering our total vineyard area. But we are not only producing bottled wines. That's why. So our total production is not that big, especially if we consider that we have more than 25 different wines labels. therefore, the availability of volumes and of wines that can be available for the US market and the US importer is not that big. Therefore, we have to find, I would say, a small medium size importer that is doing a really nice work on the Horeca channels, so with restaurants, hotels, etc. That is somehow focused on like premium, at least, wine, because even our entry level are can be considered even premium, and then of course with the super premium, so the high end line that we have.
So what's the range in pricing?
For the entry level, we are between 5 to 10 euros a cellar, depending on.
Oh, so you'll be like $15 to $20 MSRP in the US for those entry level wines, maybe $14.99 on deal, something.
Yeah, and on the other side, for the selezioni, so the high end wines, we are between we can say 10 to 17 euros, except the Vino Santo, which is even higher.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. And that's kind of an unusual thing. One of the things that I'm seeing is increases in attention to like Sardinian wines with, Cannonau and Vermentino. But most of the growth in Italian wines seems to be red that I see, or at least people think about Italian wines, they think reds rather than whites. Is that a challenge? Are you guys making any red wines?
Yeah. Actually, we are concentrated on white wines, white grape varieties, but we produce also some really interesting reds, both from international grape varieties like Pinot Nero, and I would say that Lagrange is in the middle between international and local because it's grown somewhere else, but it's linked to Trentino Alto Adige. So we produce also Lagrange, and two other really Trentino grape varieties that are Teroldego and Rebo, that are really interesting reds. Rebo especially is important for us because it's almost only produced here in Valle dei Laghi, and it can be used both for easy or easier to drink wines with not a lot of alcohol, so between 12.5 and 13, with a little oak usage for maturation. And on the other side, we use the Rebo for the production of a special wine that stays in oak for at least 3 years after a small drying process that can last up to 30 or 40 days.
I definitely need to come to the winery and taste all these. When we were in Verona, you only had a couple there, and that's what struck me of interest, but I'd love to taste the rest. So what activities are you running or going to run in the U.S. now that you have distribution here? Obviously, COVID is negatively impacting Horeca, as you call it, but on-premise as we do. How are you dealing with that, and what are your plans?
Our plan is, of course, to try to enter the market in the best way possible. So trying to support our importer, first of all, with some initiative and some marketing investments there. And on the other side, we want to participate, when COVID allows it, to some events and some masterclasses there. And at the same time, try to make our wines be tasted and hopefully awarded also by some international critics and journalists there. But at the same time, I believe not now, but I would say in the medium to long term, we have also to plan something to have a stronger presence there. So maybe investing in the people that can be our promoters, brand ambassadors in the US that are living there. So not moving from Europe or
Understood. Yeah. So a parallel question then becomes e-commerce. As you're aware, e-commerce has become a really significant channel in the U.S. A lot of people are thinking of it as a third channel: on-premise, off-premise, and e-premise. And it's a way for you to have distribution of your wines in states where you don't necessarily have specific distribution when you're working with retailers who can ship across state lines. Do you have any? Are you working with your importer, and are they your distributor too in Florida?
Yeah, they are.
Puta? Okay. So you're working with them on any e-commerce programs early on, or do you have plans for that?
Not right now, but we are planning to do so because, as you mentioned before, the e-commerce trend is in the US especially is kind of disrupting the historical three-tier system, in my opinion. So I would say being present in the e-commerce nowadays is really important. Of course, it boomed during the COVID period because all the direct sales in the shops or from the winery weren't present in a certain sense. But I will say that in the near future, e-commerce will become more and more one of the keys to success. So it can be really hard for some wineries that don't have a structure or the personal that understands all of these dynamics and how the e-commerce work. But on the other side, it will be really nice. Nowadays, it counts in Italy and in Europe less than 10%, but in the US, even more than 20 sometimes in certain areas.
Well, actually, it depends on whose numbers you believe, but we certainly have seen a dramatic increase. I've heard from 4 to 8. It's very hard to get numbers on this, of course, but I don't think it's reached 10 yet. But the forecast is 12 to 20 in the near future, simply because everything else is selling through e-commerce. So one of the key pieces of messaging in the U.S. is scores. You alluded to them before. Have you had your wines rated and reviewed by any entities like James Suckling or?
Yeah, some of our wineries, the high-end ones, both from local and international varieties. So not only Nosiola, but also Chardonnay, Pinot Blanc, Mazzoni Bianco, Pinot Noir, or even Lagrange, have been awarded and scored. We received scored from James Suckling, Wine Advocate, Jancis Robinson, and also from Decanter, which is based, of course, in the UK, but it's recognized worldwide. And we are looking for getting some scores also from Vinous, Wine Enthusiasts, and others. And I believe that the future, especially for our high-end wines, will be bright.
And what trade shows are you planning on? Is your importer and distributor planning on attending and exhibiting at? Obviously, that's something in a state of flux as well, but in the U.S., I'm talking about. Do you have specific plans?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, because we have a partnership with Gambero Rosso and Slow Wine, especially, that are doing over the years. Every year they do a U.S. tour, so we are planning to attend some of the shows with them. And at the same time,
do you have awards from Trebicchieri?
Yes, of course.
Have you won?
It's
of course.
Of course. I mean, with
everybody does. No, they don't.
No, I said of course because it's the third year actually that we got Trebicchieri.
Trebicchieri.
Yeah,
that's really, really significant.
Yeah, but the thing is that on the first year we got it on the Vino Santo 2003, that was named also the best sweet wine in Italy that year. Then the second year we received on the Lora, which is another Nosiola, the 2015 vintage, and then last year with the L'Argilère 2013, so another Nosiola. So in 3 years,
2015, 2013, sounds like we're talking about Brunellos. I mean, in terms of age,
yeah.
Right? They're just releasing the 2016 Brunellos. That's really, I was very interested and excited. It was one of those things that I discovered at Wine to Wine. I remember we were having a conversation with a couple of our friends, and I just went over and grabbed a bottle, and I didn't know anything about it. And you happened to be there, and then you started explaining it, and I tasted it, and was like, wow, this was a wow factor of, in my mind, a totally undiscovered or unknown grape variety from Italy that competes on a very different scale than Vermentino or something else. Not that there's anything wrong with Vermentino, but this thing, it was kind of like I felt about when I first learned about Grüner Veltliner, that it's, well, there's a whole world here that most people in America don't know. And that's kind of what excited me and interested me in this whole thing. So that's exciting. You're a member of something called Agive, A-G-I-V-E? What's
Agive?
Agive. Sorry, my Italian pronunciation, not good. Explain it. What is it?
It's a kind of association under the umbrella, we can say, of Unione Italiana Vini, that allows the members to be only under 40 years old. At the beginning, they were only...
What do they do when they're over 40? Do they shoot them?
No. They just apply for the proper Unione Italiana Vini. That's it. No, they don't shoot them yet. No, jokes apart, it's a really interesting association that was born only for the Italian wine producer, Italian wine families at the beginning. But then they opened the doors also to young managers and professionals in the wine sector, but not only in the production point of view, so not only from the wineries, but also from like all the supply chain of the wine sector, which is really interesting because nowadays we have some consultants there, some e-commerce startups, etc., which is really, really interesting. And it's really nice to open your network and to be friends and take contact with all these people that to try to be, in a certain sense, the future of the Italian wine,
which I think is wonderful and bright. And I see generations handing off responsibility in all over the country, of course. Okay, so one of the things that I like to do in ending the conversations is ask, what's the big takeaway? We've talked about a lot of things about this great, very few people have heard of, a type of wine we're not familiar with, age-worthy whites, also an relatively unfamiliar concept. Out of all of that, relative to Cantina Toblino, what's the big takeaway?
I would say that the wine sector is really complicated, but we have the goal to make it simple and to find the best way to try to communicate our strengths and our goals and our attention to build a really nice future for, in our case, for the Italian wine.
Okay, so when you get that figured out, would you let me know? Because I've been working on that for a while too. That's great, thank you. So bringing this to a close, I want a big thank you to Giovanni Brumat of Cantina Toblino, and you get applause for being so relentless in chasing me down and meeting in Italy. And I really look forward to seeing more of the wines in the U.S. market. It is something new and interesting and to be discovered. And that's one of the things that we know from a marketing perspective is that Americans want is to discover something new. And the beauty of Italy, we have something like 500 or 600 varietals to discover. It's an endless journey, I think. So thank you to Giovanni, and hopefully we'll see you in Italy in April at VinItaly. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Steve, for inviting me and for this beautiful conversation. And I wait you here in Italy, not only at the VinItaly, but also in our winery as soon as possible.
I'd like to come. I'm kind of listening to you talk got me more and more interested. So yeah, that's kind of a definite. Thank you again. And that's it for this week's edition of Get U.S. Market Ready with Italian Wine People on the Italian Wine Podcast channel. Check in next Monday for a new edition with another interesting conversation with people involved in the Italian wine business. This is Steve Raye. Thank you very much. This is Steve Raye. Thanks again for listening on behalf of the Italian Wine Podcast.
Guys, I'm Joy Livingston, and I am the producer of the Italian Wine Podcast. Thank you for listening. We are the only wine podcast that has been doing a daily show since the pandemic began. This is a labor of love, and we are committed to bringing you free content every day. Of course, this takes time and effort, not to mention the cost of equipment, production, and editing. We would be grateful for your donations, suggestions, requests, and ideas. For more information on how to get in touch, go to ItalianWinePodcast.com.